So when I was a young college student, I was coming here with my parents, my mom, and my family. And there was a guy we used to call him the Candy Man. And this little guy and his wife would sit at the edge, and he would give candy to all the kids, you know, after Mass. And they couldn't wait, of course, to get a piece of candy. And, me being a super smart college student, I had already, gauged this person and sized him up and had all these preconceived notions of who he was, And he was a very light-complected, older male. He would wear the seersucker suits, kind of the Southern gentleman type of persona. And when I would go over to the activity building, I would never sit anywhere near this guy because I just thought he was a complete sucker. I'm like, this guy's got to be, the complete, not really connected to the real world, doesn't really understand what's happening, and, he is just not my type of guy. But he's a nice old man, I respect him, and I just won't sit next to him. I'll go sit somewhere else. And lo and behold, one day, the only seat in the activity center was next to this gentleman. And his name was Walter Williams. And I sit there, and, I spoke, and he spoke, and we were nice and pleasant, but I really wasn't trying to engage. And when we started talking, and this old man started spitting fire and brimstone, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm an artist, and I do this, and, we just started talking about everything, and right then, that ideal of judging a book by its cover was just blown away. You know what I mean? I didn't know anything, and this guy just kind of embraced me. And I went to some of his art shows, and he taught me how to look at art from different perspectives and different things. And we talked about life, and I used to make pies for my friends for Christmas, and I let him taste my pies, and he was like, "Oh, you should go into your own business. Black folks, we need our own business." I mean, he was just like, just everything that, from the look that when I looked at him, I did not see that. But when I spoke with him and he opened up, he was just, he was all of that, and he was active in the church. He was an older gentleman still, very active in what he was doing here, very active in teaching art. And he really taught me to embrace the church. And we talked about the church, but the community of the church and what it did and how it helped the people. And at that time, they had like AAA meetings happening here. There were a lot of different things that how Sacred Heart was a part of a community bigger than just a Catholic community. And that resonated with me. And this guy was active and he was doing things. And so I think from the start, from that point forward, I looked at the church differently. It was not necessarily about just me and being in a Catholic church or coming to church with my mom. It changed to kind of what could I do to help. And I think that stuck with me. I think it, so whenever there was an opportunity to kind of help or do a little something, and so I was really impressed by that. And me and Mr. Walter Williams became fast friends, and, he would always give me little Christmas gifts and my kids gifts, and, him and his wife, Martha, they were just like, they just embraced you. And that embracing made me able to embrace Sacred Heart and the community and what happens here. So as I, kind of matriculated and went through certain things, there were different folks that kind of came in. I was excited to see the number of men here at the church that were involved. I was asked to get involved in a mentoring program, and I was young. It was cool. I would do it, to help some young folks. But that became, it became very funny to me at first, because someone calling you Mr. Holt when you're like, 20-some years old, you're like, Mr. Holt, where is he at? My daddy here or something? That was kind of my inside joke. Look, my daddy's not in here, and if he walks in this room, we're probably all going to be in trouble. But after maybe the first or second year of working with the mentoring program, and these young boys would come up and they would, give you a hug or, give you five, and they would, they wanted to sit next to you and they wanted to talk with you. I was like, oh man, it became bigger than just hanging out on Saturday trying to help some kids. And so I appreciate the guys that started that, Mr. Gaither and Big John Thorne and Ted Cunningham and Carl. I mean, all these were men who were taking their time to be involved to help, young men and young boys that were not necessarily their own, but they cared about them, and that was also part of this community. And these guys were workers. That was a difference. I mean, these guys, not only did they care, but they were workers. So that made a big difference, and I think that keeps me kind of grounded, and it keeps me understanding that it's not necessarily about you or position or title, but it's about caring and putting in the work and actually trying. And to see these guys do that, that was important. And I think that kind of also continues to push me to try to do the best to help other folks. In regards to my own faith and development, there's a few things that I thought about when John sent this request. And one was, I was a young lieutenant with the Detroit Fire Department, and I was applying for a position as a captain, and the odds were stacked against me. And it was because there was an older gentleman who was already a captain who had had 20 years seniority within that section who was applying for the same position. And so when I put in, it was like, oh, Holt, you're not getting this position. Danny Kemp is already a captain, and it's just a lateral move for him. He's going to get it. And I prayed. I fought. We had a discussion in one of our mentoring programs about it, And when I got promoted, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, they didn't, it just worked. And I've always been faithful. But at that time, I felt that I had to pray even harder. And sometimes it's difficult to pray when I guess your thinking tells you it's not gonna work. It's like you're praying and it's like you're fighting with yourself sometimes, you're like, because God has all this power. But then I don't know if you think maybe he's too busy to deal with you, or maybe this just won't work, but just logic, or I should say the logic that we have says this is not going to work. But a faith logic and a love, it changes those things. And so I've seen those types of things happen, and I felt that, and I was just like, so the story that goes with that is keep on pushing. And I'm probably going to cry a little bit, but keep on pushing was kind of what my grandfather, who we thought was senile, would say to us all the time. Keep on pushing, keep on pushing. And so me and all my siblings, that's our thing when stuff gets tough. Keep on pushing, keep on pushing. And I never, it was, as a little kid, it was kind of funny because that's what Granddaddy would say. But when situations got tough and when things got ugly and I had to fight, in the back of my mind, I always have that, keep on pushing. And so it's kind of like he didn't have a lot of money, he wasn't like super educated, but he was able to give me something to help me, and it helps all of us when things get tough, this ideal of, keep on pushing. So I think that's a big part of my faith, and how my parents raised me, loving more than just your family and embracing other folks. So I'm very appreciative of those things. But that keep on pushing ideal, I think no matter what, I believe good things can happen. And I pray for good things to happen, and I just keep pushing through. And so I think the last thing that I kind of want to talk about was, so I got promoted to captain, and I was fortunate enough to make chief, and then I got promoted to deputy commissioner, and I was having a party at the activity center because any promotion I always love to celebrate. I like to eat and cook and have friends, and I was laying in the bed, and I tend not to write speeches, but I knew I had to say something, right? I gotta say something. And I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I'll just, make sure I thank, my parents and my wife, and just, thank some people, and that'll kind of be it, just tell them how much I appreciate them and just say thank you. And oh my God, I was laying in the bed and I started thinking about all the people I'd have to say thank you to. And it was like this epiphany. It was like, oh my God, I got to thank Miss Sowers, my first grade teacher. I got to thank, Miss Jackson, my third grade teacher. I got to, thank, it was just like, oh my God, all the things that have happened. And it was like it flashed before me. It was like everything that I had done, God had set this up. I mean, even to the little old lady that tells you don't walk across the street because a car is coming. It's just like, I didn't do any of this. All these things were set, for me, the people I met, the things, I didn't have to meet Walter Williams. I didn't have to meet John Thorne. I didn't have to, it's just all these things were just like, whoa, I didn't do anything. I was just the benefit, I just benefited from his grace and mercy. So, and that, I think that humbles me, and it keeps me recognizing that, yeah, good things are happening for you and your family, but it's because of his grace and his mercy, and all those things kind of come from him. And what happens is that in our day-to-day movement and life, we tend to, we may think, I did this, or, I made this happen. But I tell you, when it hits you that everything, every step was kind of set out there for you, then it definitely humbles you, and it makes you very grateful. And that's what I am. I'm very grateful. So I hope I didn't do too much cussing. And thank you for your time. And I hope your journey is, as eye-opening as mine has been, and even better. I wish you enough. Thank you.